Welcome to the Trainer's Dating School, where me, the trainer, will take you through how you should think about pairing, finding a partner, spouse, long-term equivalent that is requited in their love for you. The idea being that we go into and approach dating in different stages of our life differently, and that the general naivete and youthful exuberance we have in dating and romance when we're younger is often mixed together with other notions, feelings, phenomena as we age. And what this bears out is the consequence of dating and the resultant effect of having a partner following a certain path that we also may or may not be cohabitating. So when we start to think about dating, I would say classifying any man over the age of 25, any woman over the age of 22, the considerations start to become very stark around why you would pick certain partners for certain things. It's not enough that your partner should be handsome, attractive, or very funny, or some combination of lust is influencing your decisions, but albeit that will play a part. It's much more around the considerations of grander cupidity combined with the lifestyle that you're choosing to live. Now, I've just illustrated some examples. These aren't hard and fast rules or anything of that sort, but it's just to give you an idea of the premonition you can have around the long-term, say, the expedience or the at least the workability of a relationship that you might go into, and what that partner could mean for you, longevity, long term, how you feel as if you could sustain a lifestyle with that person and why. And so what we've done, you and I together, my life partner, the YouTube viewer, is create this space where we look at the qualities and the value of somebody over time, starting when we are in this 25 to 20 or 22 if we're a woman, to 50 for a man and 45 for a woman. Shorter, but almost immaterial difference. But we'll note it anyhow. It's just to say that men tend to age into themselves at a later date and then also age out of that same state. Women are more attractive, fecund, and mature earlier than men are. And then also they lose that appeal. And this is somewhat tied to their ability to have children, child rearing years, you could call them, as well. And so that tends to fade out mid 40s, 50s. Some women are lucky, obviously 50s. Some women are less lucky in late 30s. But you can see how that this is representative of what is a general study, general case. Now, we want to basically qualify ourselves as, in the early stages of our relationship building and finding, as someone who's basing a lot of decisions on looks and our unrefined ego. Because we don't mature properly, and I would say this in a general sense, that anyone under 30 is not very matured, and anyone between 30 and 40 finds themselves typically, and then 40 plus is when you're living into who you are, and then you decay in your 50s in some slow but very linear denominated fashion. So what we're starting to realize, hopefully, about ourselves in our dating in our 20s and 30s is that looks matter quite a bit. It's important to be attracted to a partner, have chemistry. You don't want to have non-existent sex life. You don't want to have someone you roll over and see and you're aghast and have to recoil at their horrible countenance and visage. But at the same time, I think you start to also appreciate that people are more than their looks. They are a person underneath who hopefully is developing. Now, this can be confusing, or at least lay traps in the minds of young adults in terms of what is good now is good forever. We have some people with short time horizons, cost of, you could call it time versus opportunity cost versus long term, and people who invest wisely, and we can see the payoff differential at the end, basically, of this T finalizing. Anyone who's dating over 45 as a woman or 50 as a man is dating for different reasons. These are not reasons why we would pair naturally from a child rearing and family orientation, nuclear family perspective. Not that you can't enjoy dating after 50 or 45 or whatever it is, and you should obviously still have an approach and still understand what you're trying to get out of a romance at that age, but also between your fecund years where you have the most growth available to you as a person, as a soul, as a being, then we want to be a bit smarter. We don't want to date some dipshit or drop kick. So we can understand that this is very archetypal. We want to say that there are certain people with certain fates that are accorded to them in ways that are inescapable, and this inexorable pull towards this outcome is something that you can foreshadow and have a premonition upon. You can quite easily predistigate these things, because we know that a hot girl who is lazy will probably always be hot-ish and lazy. Now, she could turn into a fat girl if she's, say, spiritually fat and was blessed with genetics and they slowly degrade over time. But if we're going to consider the girl who's lazy from a life rather than necessarily physiognomy or like a physique standpoint. So she might exercise. She's not lazy about exercise. She's not lazy about her diet or her routines and her beauty, but she is lazy spiritually, say, and that starts to culminate in what is a very languishing of, I'm either a partner, girlfriend, then I'm a fiance, and then I'm a wife, and then I'm a stay-at-home mum, and then and you can see that this degradation of the value, you might call it. This is obviously a very economized version of saying someone's life value. So I mean it. I mean it more beautifully than value. Maybe is the determinant of something of an economic unit. Much more value to the other person, the soul, and this could be a love level. It could be a romance level, something like this, where we have a vitality and importance to this because it's obviously related to our felicity. We want it to be corresponding to something much nicer than just a very generic and or dehumanized version of a value calculation. It's just that we value hot people in certain ways. They make us feel good, makes us happy. We like that. There's a connection. Kissing a nice, good-looking girl makes you feel good. Very easy to understand why the appeal is there. So the hot girl, she could probably maintain quite a high, say, level of value across her lifetime if she's able just to maintain that certain level of, you bought and got what you wanted and you kind of live that life. You bought the Ferrari and you want to keep the Ferrari forever. It's always going to be basically a Ferrari. It'll be a relic, but a nice relic in 50 years. And that is what you get with this sort of archetype here. And that's also fine. Some people do like that. You'll notice a lot of men who try to strive and be successful in business, say, or some other realm of success, of ambition, actually like the girl who's a bit hot and lazy and doesn't challenge them very much, because that's the type of partner they value. There's something that they want out of their life, is someone who just is quite easy to be around and easy to look at and provides the things that they want, but in relation to providing a lifestyle for them. So you can see here how the dating profile for someone like that can be easily mapped, and you could quite easily see, very simply, elementary, why you would A, pick it if you like it, B, stick with it if you like it, C, understand what the end of your dating life cycle, or at the end of this phase, that you've gotten what you paid for up front, and that the value is fairly understanding and intuitive. The corresponding version for men here, so the masculine handsome man, is divergent on two things. Looks are still very important. Obviously, a very handsome man has a much easier life than a ugly man, but a handsome man can actually have a much easier life than a very hot girl. And this might sound counterintuitive to all those lookism or incels, but the handsome man has a twofold envelopment of his social circles, in that men like other handsome men, not in the homosexual way, but in just the friendly, jocular kind of platonic way, and then hot girls, or girls in general, like handsome men, maybe not lesbians, but most of the other women. So you can see how that this dual relationship exists more strongly for a handsome man than it does for a beautiful woman, because other women don't necessarily like beautiful women, and there's a particular strain of jealousy and envy that comes with that connotation. It's not to say all women are seething, jealous haverdans. It's more as if there's a competition aspect to a hot woman that is non-existent for a handsome man. Handsome men usually have a dating profile which overlaps with normal men, whereas very hot women only basically date either very successful men or other hot men. So the profiles are completely different and divergent from those things. And so we get what we see as this spiritually underlying, he's either a handsome and he's weak, or he's handsome and he's strong. Now, a handsome, strong man is someone who carries through his life with him the essence and element to his ego of strength, and that can be seen in a perennially successful handsome man, or someone who's risen to the top due to looks and then has maintained it with other means, other efforts. The easiest way to demonstrate this in reality is something obvious, superficial, vapid, maybe like Hollywood, where there are many, many handsome men over the years who have been cast in 1, 2 movies because there's been a need for some certain role or something, but they've never been able to grasp that. And you can find pictures of a lot of these guys and they end up getting fat, they end up getting sordid and live in squalid dishevelment because they lost their success and they never really had what it took to be permanently successful. They weren't a strong man, they went into drugs, they went into other proclivities for less salubrious activities, things like this. So you can see how there's a divergence here of the will and the ego on that. Now, a hot girl who is very hardworking is less impactful. She might have a flat line here because the utility, and this comes back to the dating utility in a nice way, is less improved by a hardworking hot girl because you're being picked primarily by a man due to your looks, and this also goes both ways. So a woman will pick a handsome man, obviously, also because of his looks. It's not to be sexist with it. Rather that the added value, the super added value here of the hard worker is lost in the way that she would have probably picked a high status male to begin with who can carry through the same elements of required material balancing of life. So that could be nice house, nice cars, lifestyle, things like this. Now, if they choose someone who's more spiritual than that, then they can also be hardworking at it, but it's unnecessary from a relationship point of view. Not to say, ladies, if you're out there, don't work hard at yourself. You should obviously be very competent and strong, but also knowing that the profile of man you're attracting with being competent and strong is not improved by that attribute of yours, even though you probably feel like it should be. It just isn't. We accept this thing. It's the same way that weak, handsome men over time crash out much quicker because, like I said before, their inability to distance themselves from being handsome and thus also are able to strive through and conquer suffering in any way, shape, or form is lost. So they might have a lot of success with women in their 20s and early 30s until the downfall, until the crash. So there gives a false sense maybe of success here around, look, I'm able to date whoever I want, whenever I want, this will be like this forever. Why would I bother finding a partner at this stage? Not understanding that the partner can actually prevent you from a downfall. Partners are very good at this, having a boyfriend or a girlfriend to support you emotionally in other ways, guide you, also support you with their own principles and shape you in certain ways is very important from a longevity perspective. What is sustainable in a relationship comes down to this. You need to cross and this can be the intersection here of a point along this vector space. So you need to have this correlation of a certain linear, or we'll call it linear here, but trajectory. So that is to say, you need someone who is going to intersect with you on your life path and or primarily have a life path that is similar in their trajectory to yours, at least in the outcome. So if you started as a very ugly, boorish, crass person, but over time improved yourself into a very high value person, then maybe you're at the equivalent of what would be an aged, lazy hot girl. And because the differentiation between those two lines, you say trajectories, becomes convergent at some point closer to the expiry of your fecund years, then what you're having here is the ability for you to date that maybe 42-year-old hot girl. Whether you want to or not is obviously something different. I'm assuming she's still a lovely person to be around and giggly and fun, so it could definitely still be worth it, and you'll find that the improvement level of someone who started down here to get up to here to finally get what they think they want and or a partner equivalent to what they envisioned as themselves as being is very important. It remains one of the primary struggles and influences of life. It's why you wake up every morning for certain people, which is super important, I think. So it's not to be understated at all. Now, this can go into that visionary one I've outlined here. What do I see and where do I see myself in the 20 years, and who have I seen myself next to? Because a visionary requires basically a partner who is a visionary and or a supplemental figure in their life whose trajectory is at least correlating to it. You need the positive correlation here rather than say a negative correlation. So because the hot girl is peaking 22, 24, then it's very hard for her to maintain the same level of value. This can be inhibiting for her psychologically, and she can have psychic damage from seeing girls 10 years younger 15, 20 years younger than her and being like, that used to be me. Why aren't I like that anymore? I need Botox, I need filler, I need fake boobs, things like this. Obviously not realizing that the value of that is a signal effect, which drops your actual romantic value in many ways, and it underlies what are insecurities and other red flags about you personally, rather than using this as a stepping stone for growth to improve your status and character. And we call this personality in ways that is transformative positively. You become ghoulish and bogged, and that is why there is a deleterious effect here around a decay. So you want to be in this growth space, understanding that there is a crossing point and convergence here between looks and ego and your status and your character. How is it that we can understand that at some point you're no longer going to be the young handsome man or young hot girl in the room? You might be very attractive still, and it can carry still in gravitas and profundity with it, but you will have to lean on something like status. Are you the boss? Are you the celebrity? Are you the rock star sportsman? Whatever it is, have you been able to, probably, a sportsman's a bad example because you can only really peak as a sportsman in your 20s, but nevertheless, you see what I'm saying here. The status and the character of someone can take precedence over looks and your unrefined ego. The unrefined ego influences both of these things, obviously, and having a good ego, having a genetically predisposed, or you could say ensouled ego from the gods, which is beneficial to, you say, outcomes. And so it's to growth mindset. It's to this idea that you can become an Ubermensch. This is the ego's form taking shape and hold of you, saying you can do more, you can suffer more, you can push more, you can grow, you can become better, be the Superman, versus an ego says, hedonism is the key to happiness. Let me just F and S my way through life and then see where we're at when I'm 50. Obviously, one of these things is going to be retrograde and, if anything, probably borderline suicide inducing. So you have a reflection here on your natural predisposition for things. And if I have the penchant for drugs or gambling, I know that that's probably going to undermine me and my progress. So you can either fight that predilection, or you can overcome it, or you can succumb to it. And then obviously from that, you will then find yourself degrading and decaying much faster and sharper in this precipitous decline. And this is what we could term the short-term thinker, where there might be some progress and then there's ups and downs, and your ability to withstand the ups and the downs can be the determinant of if I'm going to continue to improve. So the short-term thinker, if they somehow manage to understand their own failings and address them, could become high value and just switch to this medium-term thinker, visionaries type, or they will just surrender to their vices and eventually decay and expire. So this is what I think the basic of the understanding of the date mapping looks like when you start to age through your dating cycle. When you go into this milieu of, I'm a certain age trying to find a partner for a certain thing, usually in your late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, it's about a partner who will provide kids for you and a stable home, and envisioning what that meant when you were younger is filling this romantic prophecy for you. When you're late 30s, 40s, and you haven't found that yet, then emergency buttons are being pushed and you're trying to manage with what you have available to you. Whilst I would say also, hopefully, you're trying to minimize your own complex around this, where we become maniacal with how we act because we are around ourselves more than anyone else, obviously. But when you're dating many, many different people, you have a cornucopia of options around personality traits you like and dislike, and you start to try to amalgamate these in ways that's Frankensteinish. You will not ever have this perfect person who represents all the good things about all the people you've dated. Oh, this girl had the chemistry, this girl had the personality, this girl had the lips, this girl had the brain. This doesn't work, and it corresponds also to men. It's like, this man's a bit disappointing, he doesn't earn that much. Whereas I think you can hopefully disentangle these, you say, affections and the attributes associated to what makes you feel lust or chemistry. But in saying that, in general, I think you just then have to go in with a realistic approach of find someone on a trajectory like mine. If I'm striving and improving in all these ways and I'm becoming this high status nice personality, who takes care of themselves, and that's borne out in physiognomy. Anyone who takes care of themselves and is fit and is lovely and smiling and happy and cheerful starts to look like that over the course of their years as the lines set in and the effects of sun and all these aging markers are felt. You will still get what are a differentiation between the positives and the negatives in life, and the happy-go-luckies versus the ne'er-do-wells. Now, what we want to avoid are the people in arrested development, and those are the puerile people who exist through life at a very stagnant to decay formation. I haven't outlined them here just because they're not worth dating. And for turbo normies, this is difficult because it'll be a lot of the people you went to high school with, and your dating pool is populated by people in your network. Your network is people you know or are around or somehow interact with at points in your life, work after the age of 25 maybe. So you're limited in a lot of choices. Now you can have online dating. Obviously applications and dating profiles become pernicious and they become tricksy in ways that allow for probably the restoration of hierarchical dating abstracted out of real feeling. You can be very, very critical of someone's profile, and in real life you might have been head over heels for. It's difficult to emancipate yourself from the notion of something being easy and therefore good. So Tinder or Hinge or whatever app you have, it's very easy, and thus we attribute that to being, oh, it must be good because it's easy to find a match, and I can find a match who's like me and I find attractive from pictures. Whereas the traditional mating profile or the dating profile and the intimating has never been like this in a mechanized and technic way. Now, techniques I feel obviously very good in all profiles, so we can understand that the efficiency ratio of finding a better match than historically was available to you is very high. It is more likely you will find someone better on an app than you would have in real life. But what is happening is your inability to choose someone is a personal thing because your surfeit of options is crippling your choices here. You're saying, look, more handsome men or more handsome attractive ladies are liking me than the one I've got in front of me. I could probably do better in that way. Or some footballer or some rock star or some model has messaged me, that's better than what I have, rather than understanding that those are people with ill intents or different intents that you have then for dating. Now, this is a long-winded way of saying turbo normies are, we use a Landsharkian term, one-shotted by dating apps. And this is very evident in how dating is treated, rather than even if a turnstile affair. We used to have speed dating. We used to have, I want to call them matchmakers. People like this existed very recently in history, have all become obviously obsolete in this way. But the conceit and the vapidity of our current stylistic choices around dating, so using an app, is obviously already signaling to the crowd that there's interest I have for meeting people on this app specifically for these reasons. And you go into an app thinking about something. God, I wish I had someone to cuddle me tonight. God, I wish I had someone to kiss tonight. God, I wish I had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, etc. You can see how your disposition, your demeanor, and how you act toward these apps influences these outcomes around your choices. Why am I picking this one right now? Maybe I'm ovulating. Maybe I'm very, randy at nighttime or something as a man, or whatever it might be. I'm swiping for whatever reason, or clicking heart or clicking like, or whatever it is that you do. So these are the influences you want to try to avoid if you're not introspective and circumspect enough to actually understand how this works holistically. How does this impact my dating as a function of trying to find a mate to then have children, or at least establish a happy family lifestyle, which is going to rise me out of the mundane affair of bachelorhood or bachelorette spinsterhood. So this is the problem you're facing, and we want to solve this problem because that's a very unromantic way. We're going to keep the romance. We're going to be nice about this, but we are going to say that there are things you're doing and choices you're making that aren't corresponding to the outcomes you want. And it comes back to this. You need to understand people's trajectory, and how they look is a very big part of that, but it also is around what they do and how they feel. Now, if you work with someone, you get a feel for them, then it is much easier to ease into what is a relationship in a positive way, because you have dealt with someone and their trajectory matches yours probably in some very similar ways. They've chosen a industry that you work in, they've chosen jobs that you find familiar or similar, and so all of these things start to correspond to, we all are either university educated, young, fit, or middle-aged, fit, or old and fat, whatever it is. You see this coagulation effect of all these different attributes into these ways. This is why work actually is semi-functional way to find date in a positive way. But you can also apply this to other things like sports clubs and hobbies and anything else that might come up that's not necessarily designed around dating, other than having an idea that you probably will find dates there. Everything has a sexual undercurrent in a lot of ways. So it's not as if I'm going to sign up for a dancing class without any expectations around dancing with a woman. Obviously, I would want to dance around pretty women, so I sign up for the dance class. But it is obviously the relationship there that you have to understand what the implied effect is. Now, so lastly, I think it's maybe good to just outline the very small précis of this. There is an energy level. You want to find someone who matches your energy level. This is very important because you want to balance each other. One will feel short of energy at some point in time, and you want to be able to uplift those. So it's invigorating rather than enervating. It has to be sustainable. You have to have someone who is on a journey with you and a trajectory similar to yours, or at least it's a outcome that's going to converge at some point in a positive way, that they will then be able to maintain interest in one another. You're both growing as people in positive ways, then it can be that sustainable action that allows you to be what the longevity allows. It can be extant. Now, communication, I would say, is probably the third pillar of importance here. How you communicate, and behaviorally that is impacted by your cultural background a lot, but also the type of person that you are. Are you frank? Are you dismissive? Are you a coward? What is it about you? Now, obviously, I am advocating here for someone who's very upfront and is able to discuss and understand their own feelings and the way that they think in ways that is very embellished and very prolix, but you still have to have a certain level of truth, and the truth is the important part. Can I communicate truth to this person, and will they want to hear it and respond to it with truth? And you outline it in that way. The fourth pillar here is a plan, making sure that you have one. It can be nebulous to a degree, it can be ephemeral in some sense, but I would make sure that it's a plan that is achievable. You can have any garbage AI chatbot tell you what the basics of a plan are here, but have a goal and have it attainable and have an outcome and an idea of where you want to be in 20 years when you're 25, when you're 30, because it will happen. You will age into these years and you will want them to turn out how you think a good life looks. Is that kids? Is that a house? Is that a yacht? Is that a flat in Milan? What is it that you think of the elements to your life that would be additional? Status? Is it a job? Is it something like this? And then you grow into those. This is corresponding to a journey and a destiny that you have, and people are attracted to these things. If you see someone on a direction that's positive, you want to join them. It's natural human instinct. Hot people, both boys and girls, will like someone with something behind them, some momentum, some force, and you can pull in people like this for that reason. And then lastly is the chemistry, and I know I've stated it a lot, it can't be understated. You need a natural chemistry with someone. It has to feel like something when you smell them, when you kiss them, when you touch them, that isn't the normal feelings and sensations of this. It has to be some related element to this feels very, very nice, more than it does for someone else. I'm not saying you have to necessarily try out 100 to know the one. I would definitely not advocate for that. But also to say that because one feels good doesn't mean that that's the one. That could just be your naivete. So you have to very, very smartly balance this in. Don't go out there and be whorish, either sex, but also don't go out there and be virginal and naive, because both of those things will correspond to deleterious outcomes. Once again, be very concentrated in how you're approaching these things in those ways, because you don't want to decay yourself by exposure as much as you want to be able to build yourself by exposure. There's a balance, and a balance here is very strikeable. It is achievable. You know when you're being both an idiot and not an idiot. So you try to emulate that not idiot part of yourself. The less bad decisions you make can accumulate into good decisions, or at least neutral, in ways that will ideally snowball you forward. So treat dating nicely and romantically, and as if some venture that's outside the realm of reduced analytics, but also understand that it's a holistic affair, and that your brain and your intentions and your soul is trying to intertwine itself around another soul for a specific destiny and I would say hopefully the universal cosmogonic feeling of love.